The day my son, Michael, brought his new wife home to meet me was one of those perfect late spring afternoons where the world feels saturated with color and promise. The dogwoods were in full bloom, their delicate white blossoms like scattered pearls against the vibrant green of the lawn. I had spent the entire morning in a state of nervous, fluttering excitement, arranging flowers, baking my signature lemon poppy seed cake, and generally fussing over every detail of the house. I wanted everything to be perfect. After a string of disastrous relationships, Michael had finally found someone. He sounded different on the phone. Happy, settled, at peace. I was desperate to love the woman who had brought that peace to my only child. I was on the porch, adjusting a stray cushion, when their car pulled into the driveway. Michael got out first, his familiar, beaming smile sending a wave of warmth through me. And then he opened the passenger door. The woman who stepped out was bathed in the golden afternoon light, and for a moment the world tilted on its axis. My breath caught in my throat, a sharp, painful gasp. The ceramic planter I was holding slipped from my numb fingers and shattered on the stone steps. She was beautiful, with a cascade of fiery red hair that seemed to catch the sun and set it ablaze. She had high, elegant cheekbones, a dusting of pale freckles across her nose, and wide, expressive eyes the color of sea glass. She was the living, breathing ghost of my sister Amelia. Amelia, my beautiful, wild, tragic sister who had died in a car accident 25 years ago when she was just 21. The grief, which I thought had softened into a dull, manageable ache over the decades, came rushing back with the force of a physical blow. It was uncanny. The resemblance wasn't just passing, it was absolute. The way she held her head, the slight, almost imperceptible tilt of her smile, the very essence of her presence, it was Amelia, resurrected in the spring sunlight. Michael rushed over, his face a mask of concern. "Mom, are you okay?" The woman, his wife, hovered behind him, her lovely face clouded with worry. "Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry," she said, her voice a soft, gentle melody. "We startled you. Let me help you with that." She knelt to pick up the broken shards of pottery, and as she moved, the sleeve of her sundress rode up her arm. And that's when I saw it. There, on the delicate skin of her inner forearm, was a small, elegant tattoo. A tiny, intricately detailed hummingbird, its wings frozen in mid-flight. A second wave of shock, colder and more terrifying than the first, washed over me. I felt dizzy, my hand flying to my mouth to stifle a sob. It was the exact same tattoo, in the exact same spot, as the one Amelia had gotten on a rebellious whim the summer before she died. I had been with her. I had held her hand as the needle buzzed, her knuckles white but her eyes gleaming with defiant joy. It was our secret, a symbol of her untamable spirit. "Mom!" Michael's voice was sharp with panic now. "What is it? You're as white as a sheet." I couldn't speak. I just stared at the woman, his wife, whose name I didn't even know yet, and at the impossible bird tattooed on her arm. She looked up at me, her sea glass eyes wide with confusion. "My name is Lily," she said softly, as if offering a lifeline. "It's so wonderful to finally meet you." Lily! The name was a stranger, but the face, the smile, the tattoo, they were my sisters. My mind, reeling, began to grasp at straws. A long-lost daughter? A secret Amelia had kept? But Amelia was 21 when she died. The timing was impossible. This woman, Lily, couldn't be more than 28, 30 at most. It made no sense, and yet the evidence was there, etched into her very skin. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur, a surreal, nightmarish pantomime of polite conversation. I learned that Lily was an artist, a painter, that she and Michael had met at a gallery opening 6 months ago, that they'd had a whirlwind romance and a small private wedding in the city just last week. She was charming, intelligent, and she looked at my son with an adoration that was plain to see. She was, by all accounts, perfect, and that made it all the more terrifying. Every time she laughed, I heard Amelia's ghost. Every time she tucked a stray strand of red hair behind her ear, I saw my sister sitting across from me. I tried to be normal. I smiled. I asked questions. I served the cake. But my mind was a chaotic whirlwind of impossible theories. Reincarnation? A cruel, elaborate hoax? Was I losing my mind? The tattoo was the anchor to my unease. I couldn't stop staring at it. Finally, unable to bear the silent screaming in my head, I forced a light, casual tone into my voice. "That's a beautiful tattoo, Lily," I said, my heart hammering. "Hummingbirds are so lovely." She glanced down at her arm and smiled, a fond, gentle expression on her face. "Thank you." "It's silly, really. I got it when I was 19. I don't even remember why I chose a hummingbird. I just woke up one day and felt like I had to have it. It felt familiar somehow, like a memory I couldn't quite place." A memory she couldn't place. The words sent a fresh chill down my spine. When they finally left, promising to come back for a longer visit soon, I collapsed onto the sofa, my body trembling. I was alone with the ghost that had just walked out of my house. I needed answers. My investigation started in the attic, in a dusty trunk filled with Amelia's belongings that I hadn't had the strength to open in 25 years. The air inside smelled of dried roses and fading perfume. I lifted out old yearbooks, concert ticket stubs, and a stack of her journals, bound in faded leather. I sat on the dusty floorboards and began to read, immersing myself in my sister's vibrant, chaotic world. Her journals were filled with her passions, poetry, painting, a deep and abiding love for the natural world. And then I found the entries from the summer she died. They were different, darker. She wrote about a new boyfriend, a man named Julian. She never mentioned his last name. He was older, an artist she had met in the city. She wrote about him with a breathless, all-consuming passion that bordered on obsession. "Julian sees the world differently," she wrote. "He says I have an old soul, that I've been here before. He's teaching me things about art, about life, about a world beyond this one." The entries grew more cryptic. She mentioned sessions with Julian, journeys they would take together in his studio. She wrote about vivid, unsettling dreams of past lives, of flying, of being a different person in a different time. My modern mind immediately screamed a word Amelia wouldn't have used: cult. This man, Julian, had been manipulating her. And then I found the last entry, dated the day before her accident. "Julian has given me a gift. He says it's a key, a way to ensure that we will always find each other no matter what. He calls it a soul mark. He designed it himself, a hummingbird for my restless spirit. He says that even if I leave this body, my soul will remember the mark. It will carry the echo of it into the next life, a beacon for him to find me. I'm scared, but I'm excited. We are going to be together forever." I dropped the journal. My blood ran cold. A soul mark. A beacon. This wasn't a coincidence. This was a plan. A sick, twisted, metaphysical plan. This Julian had brainwashed my sister, and now, 25 years later, he had found her again. Or he believed he had. And he had sent her back to me, wearing my sister's face, married to my son. But why? The next day, I called Michael. My hands were shaking so badly I could barely dial the number. "Hi, Mom," he answered, his voice cheerful. "Everything okay?" "Michael, I need you to be honest with me," I said, my voice tight. "When you met Lily, how did it happen?" "Exactly." "I told you, Mom, at the gallery opening for that painter, Julian Croft." The name hit me like a physical blow. Julian Croft. My blood roared in my ears. "Tell me about him, Eyes," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "He's incredible, Mom," Michael gushed. "A genius. He's become a real mentor to Lily. He's the one who encouraged her to pursue her art full-time. He's like a father to her. In fact, he's the one who introduced us." He took me aside that night and said, "Michael, I have someone I think you need to meet. I have a feeling you two are meant for each other. Meant for each other. A feeling." It was all orchestrated. This Julian Croft had not just found Lily. He had delivered her to my son, inserting her directly into the heart of my family. The cold dread I'd been feeling began to transform into a hot, simmering rage. I spent the next week in a feverish haze of online research. Julian Croft was a reclusive but highly respected artist, known for his haunting, ethereal portraits. He had a small, devoted following who treated him more like a spiritual guru than a painter. I found articles from the late 90s that described him as the charismatic leader of an art collective that some former members had labeled a cult, accusing him of psychological manipulation and practicing bizarre hypnotic rituals. There were no official charges, but the whispers were there. Then I found what I was looking for: an old interview where he talked about his philosophical beliefs. He spoke of reincarnation, of soulmates who travel through lifetimes to find each other, of imprinting a soul with an energetic signature that could be recognized in a future life. He was a predator, a spiritual vampire who had latched onto my sister's vibrant spirit and had refused to let go, even in death. But who was Lily? The question tormented me. I hired a private investigator, a gruff, no-nonsense man named Peterson. I gave him Lily's full name, Lily Ann Cowan, and a photograph. I told him I needed to know everything about her past. While I waited, I had to see this man, this Julian Croft. I found the address of his gallery online and drove into the city. The gallery was a stark, white space, cold and clinical. The walls were covered with his portraits. They were all of women, all with a similar, otherworldly beauty. And in the corner of every single painting, almost hidden, was a tiny, painted hummingbird. And then I saw him. He was standing in the center of the gallery, talking to a young couple. He was older now, in his late 60s, with a mane of silver hair and piercing blue eyes that seemed to see right through you. He exuded an aura of immense calm and power. I felt a wave of revulsion. This was the man who had poisoned my sister's mind. He must have felt my stare, because he turned and his eyes met mine across the room. He smiled, a slow, knowing smile. It wasn't a friendly smile. It was a smile of ownership, a smile that said, "I know who you are, and I have what belongs to you." I fled, my heart pounding, and drove home in a blind panic. A week later, Peterson called. "I have the report on Lily Cowan," he said, his voice flat. "It's unusual." He emailed me the file. I opened it with trembling hands. Lily Ann Cowan was born in a small town in Oregon to two loving parents. She had a happy, normal, unremarkable childhood. She was a bright student, a talented artist. There was no trauma, no mystery. Her life was an open book. But at the bottom of the report was a scanned document that made my world stop. It was a medical record from when Lily was 19. She had been in a minor car accident. She had suffered a concussion, but the strangest part was the aftermath. For weeks, she experienced a form of amnesia, not forgetting her life, but experiencing what her doctors called intrusive memories, vivid, detailed dreams and waking visions of a life that wasn't hers. She described a house she'd never seen, a brother she didn't have, and an overwhelming, inexplicable sense of grief over losing a sister. She even began sketching things from these memories, and one of her recurring sketches was a small hummingbird. It was during this period of confusion that she had dropped out of college and moved to the city, where she had fallen into the orbit of Julian Croft, who told her he understood what she was going through, that he could help her make sense of it all. The car accident. It had been a trigger, a crack in her psyche that had let Amelia's echo in. Julian hadn't found a reincarnated Amelia. He had found a sensitive, vulnerable young woman, and through hypnotic suggestion and psychological manipulation, he had imprinted Amelia's memories and personality onto her. He had sculpted her into a living effigy of my dead sister. Lily wasn't Amelia reborn. She was a victim, her own identity slowly being overwritten by a ghost. And the final piece of the puzzle clicked into place. The reason for all of this. Julian was old. He believed he was going to die soon. He couldn't take Amelia's soul with him, but he could do the next best thing. He could preserve it. He could place this woman he had molded, this living work of art, into the care of Amelia's own family, ensuring that a piece of her, and by extension, a piece of him, would live on, protected and cherished, right under my nose. He was curating his legacy, and my son was the unwitting guardian of his most prized, twisted creation. That night, Michael called, his voice frantic. "Mom, you need to come. It's Lily." She collapsed. "We're at the hospital." I raced to the hospital, my mind a maelstrom of fear and rage. I found Michael pacing in the waiting room, his face pale with terror. "They don't know what it is," he said, his voice ragged. She just faded. She started talking about things that made no sense, about a house with a big oak tree, about a brother she missed. She called me Joe. Grandpa Joe. I found her room. She was lying in the hospital bed, looking small and fragile. Her eyes were open, but they were distant, unfocused. I sat down beside her and took her hand. "Lily?" I whispered. She turned her head slowly, and her sea-glass eyes focused on me. A faint, heartbreakingly familiar smile touched her lips. "Clara," she whispered, her voice weak. "You came. I missed you." It wasn't Lily looking at me. It was the echo. It was my sister, looking at me through this poor woman's eyes. Julian's work was nearly complete. Lily Cowan was disappearing. In that moment, everything became crystal clear. My anger at Lily evaporated, replaced by a fierce, protective instinct. She was not a monster. She was a prisoner in her own mind. The real monster was Julian Croft, and I was not going to let him win. I was not going to let him destroy another life to satisfy his grotesque obsession. "Michael," I said, walking back out into the hall and taking my son by the shoulders. "I need you to listen to me very carefully. We are in terrible danger. What I'm about to tell you is going to sound insane, but you have to trust me." I told him everything. I showed him Amelia's journals, the private investigator's report, the articles about Julian Croft. I watched as my son's world crumbled, his love story turning into a horror story before his very eyes. I saw disbelief, then denial, then a slow, dawning horror that mirrored my own. But he was his father's son. He was strong. By the time I finished, his grief was hardening into a cold, determined rage. "What do we do?" he asked, his voice low and dangerous. "We fight," I said. "We get her away from him. We help her find herself again. We bring Lily back." Lily's recovery is a slow, arduous process. We moved her from the city to a quiet therapeutic retreat in the countryside, far from Julian's influence. I am with her every day. Some days she is Lily, a confused, frightened young woman, grappling with the terrifying realization that parts of her own mind are not her own. On other days, the echo is strong, and she looks at me with my sister's eyes, speaks with my sister's voice, and my heart breaks all over again. Michael is her rock. His love for her has been tested by an unimaginable truth, but it has not broken. He loves Lily, the real Lily, and he is determined to help her reclaim her life, even if it means letting go of the woman he thought he married. I have hired a lawyer. We are building a case against Julian Croft, a civil suit for psychological damages and intentional infliction of emotional distress. It will be a difficult, ugly fight. He is a powerful man with powerful friends, but I will not back down. I lost my sister to him once. I will not lose another daughter. Last night, I was sitting with Lily on the porch of the retreat center, watching the fireflies begin to dot the twilight. She had been quiet all day, lost in her own thoughts. "I had a dream last night," she said suddenly, her voice clear and strong. "I was a little girl. I was painting a picture, a watercolor of my dog, a scruffy terrier named Patches. I remembered him so clearly, his smell, the feel of his fur." Tears filled my eyes. It was a real memory, her memory. Patches was the dog she'd had as a child in Oregon. It was a small crack of light in the overwhelming darkness, a piece of Lily fighting her way back to the surface. I took her hand. "That sounds like a beautiful memory, Lily." She looked at me, her sea-glass eyes clear and present. "My name is Lily," she said, with a quiet but fierce determination. "I know." I whispered, squeezing her hand. I know. The ghost of my sister may always linger in the corners of our lives, but we will not let her shadow consume the light. We will fight for the woman my son loves. We will fight for Lily, and we will win.